Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yesterday, we completed halfway through text 23, Canto 11, Chapter 7. And we're continuing with the rest of 23. The topic, Krishna speaking to Uddhava in response to, how do I become detached? Because I'm attached. And Krishna replies, you're not an ordinary living entity, Uddhava. And there are living entities that can take help with their intelligence or from their intelligence and understand who they are in the mood of detachment. And how to capture the personality of Godhead, how to perceive the personality of Godhead. Within one's limited sense is not possible. So how do you do it? How does this bhakti process work? He's explaining, although I, the Supreme Lord, can never be captured by ordinary sense perception, those situated in human life may use their intelligence and other faculties of perception to directly search for me through both apparent and indirectly ascertained symptoms. The Bhaktisiddhanta's purport for this verse, very short. Only human beings can realize the existence of the Supreme Lord with the help of direct and indirect perception after seeing cause and effect, temporary and permanent nature, and the external and internal causes of the material world. So that tells us we're going to hear a whole bunch more about unpacking that information. Here's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. Situated in a human form, engaging in bhakti yoga, yuktaha, they directly search for me, Krishna, by causes of bhakti such as hearing and chanting, hetu bihi. It is said from the later chapter of Uddhava Gita, chapter 14, Bhaktyaham ekaya grayaha. I am only attained by bhakti. Question. Can they see you by searching for you through inference, since you are the stimulator of intelligence? Answer. I cannot be attained by inference using the intelligence and various indicators, lingai. The dependent jiva is inferred by inference, since there must be a cause of the senses and intelligence, and the antaryami who instigates the jiva is somewhat inferred by inference. However, Krishna, Swayam Bhagavan, cannot be so inferred, since his form, qualities, pastimes, and powers are inconceivable beyond conception of the intelligence. What Vishwanath is saying, in simple terms, intelligence can help one understand the eternality of the soul to some limited degree, distinct from the temporary. However, the intelligence of the living entity, minus bhakti, cannot discern the personality of Godhead, because he's beyond the capacity of the intelligence or any material faculty to do so. By inference, he cannot be inferred. Now there are logical arguments, not proofs, but logical arguments of the existence of God that theologians and Prabhupada and great souls use constantly. However, perceiving and understand there must be a controller, there must be higher just like the group of people, the what's it called, the black box of something intelligent design people. There we go. Behind the structure, the intelligent structure of life, there's an intelligence behind the intelligent structure. So intelligent design. Those folks, by inference, indicate there must be. At least there's some intelligence, whatever that some intelligence is. So there is, to some degree, some inference. There's other inferences, without going into it. Jiva Goswami in his Krama Sandarbha writes, very short, engaged in bhakti, they search for me, the Lord, directly by processes like hearing and chanting. But I am not attained by inference using indicators and intelligence. So, reasoning there must be God and experiencing it doesn't happen by inference. They search for the Lord, seeing Him as different from the jiva, since the jiva is not independent, Ishwaram. He is not subject to anumana, logic and reason, but can be known if one follows Scripture. Very short. So once again, limits to the intelligence capacity to discern, experience, know Krishna. So don't go there. Jnane prayasa udapasya namanteva from Brahma's prayers. Here's an interesting reference in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Tattva Sutra, Chapter 1, Sutra 2. Tattva Prakash, the truth. So it's his writing. So here's his sutra and then the commentary. Because he is limitless, he has all powers, even though he remains beyond the touch of the modes of material nature. Sutra 2. Because he is limitless, he has all powers, even though he remains beyond the touch of the modes of material nature. And commentary, which includes a reference to this verse of Uddhava Gita. This sutra means that the Supreme Personality Godhead is beyond the modes of nature, and he has all powers. This is so because he is limitless, which is to say that he cannot be measured or understood by direct perception of the material senses or by any other means. This is described in the words of Shvetashvatara Upanishad, something that you've heard so many times from Prabhupada. Parasya Shaktir Vivadaiva Shruyate Swabhaviki Jnana Balakriyacha. His potencies are multifarious, and thus his deeds are automatically performed as a natural sequence. Shukadeva Goswami so explains in the Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 35. We heard this one yesterday, same verse. The personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is in every living being along with the individual soul, and this fact is perceived and hypothesized by our acts of seeing and taking help from the intelligence. in that elaborate purport where Prabhupada explains intelligence can reach the conclusion, not perceive, but what can reach the conclusion. There's a person behind it, all of this, a supreme person. Similarly, Canto 4, Chapter 20, Text 7 says, the individual soul is one, pure, non-material, and self-effulgent. The individual soul is the reservoir of all good qualities, and he is all-pervading, meaning there's many living entities all over the place. He is without material covering, and he is the witness of all activities. He is completely distinguished from all other living entities, and he is transcendental to all embodied souls. Bhagavatam 11:7-23, this morning's verse. Although I, the Supreme Lord, can never be captured by ordinary sense perception, those situated in human life may use their intelligence and other faculties of perception to directly search for me through apparent and indirectly ascertained symptoms. And it's almost one more reference from Narada Pancharatra. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond the world of matter, who is the supreme object of worship, whose desires are all fulfilled, and whom all living entities yearn to attain, is described in the Pancharatras. Last, here someone may protest. You consider the Supreme both beyond the modes of material nature and the master of all potencies. How is it possible to ascribe these two mutually contradictory natures to the Lord? So he's beyond the modes of nature, and he's the master of all potencies. In the following words, the author of this sutra refutes this protest. So it's remote controlling of the modes of the material creation, not direct contact. Okay, so now we're ready for the next text 24. And we're going through 25. So here's 24. It's very short, all of this. In this regard, Krishna says, sages cite a historical narration concerning the conversation between the great powerful King Yadu and an Avadhuta. And the commentary of Vishwanath, summarized by Bhaktisiddhanta. Now I will relate to you an ancient conversation that took place between an Avadhuta and King Yadu, which will shed light on your understanding of the Supersoul. So attention is now being shifted gently from the individual soul to the Supersoul. So the human form of life has its special faculties, special opportunity, privileges, facilities, and realization of Supersoul is made possible. So we're going to hear this very long, detailed description of an Avadhuta explaining to a king how he has realized transcendence by taking help of his intelligence, and thus inferring the presence of Supersoul. It's very, very detailed. The BBT purport. Lord Krishna will narrate this story to show Uddhava how rational intelligence can be utilized in Bhakti Yoga to acquire Vedic knowledge, and how ultimately an intelligent person will come to the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And short Vishwanath one-sentence commentary. Atra api here means on the topic of being realized as Paramatma through inference. the sages recite a story. And here's the story beginning, text 25. Maharaj Yadu once observed a certain Brahmana of Uddhava who appeared to be quite young and learned, wandering about fearlessly. Being himself most learned in spiritual science, the king took the opportunity and inquired from him as follows. Once upon a time, this is another translation, Maharaj Yadu, who himself was most learned in spiritual science, same. Okay. 26. Sri Yadu said, "O Brahmana, I see that you are not engaged in any practical religious activity, and yet you have acquired a most expert understanding of all things and all people within this world. Kindly tell me, sir, how did you acquire this extraordinary intelligence, and why are you traveling freely throughout the world, behaving as if you were a child?" Bhaktisiddhanta's translation. Sri Yadu said, "O Brahmana, I can see that you are not practicing any kind of spiritual discipline, and yet you have gained perfect understanding of everything within this world. Kindly tell me how you developed your extraordinary intelligence. Why do you wander over the earth, behaving as if you were a mere child?" And the final line, this is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's direct commentary, really short. "O Brahmana," Yadu said, "O Brahmana, where have you attained your great intelligence, by which you wander the earth like a child, not engaged in work?" Now, in one sense, this is a bit of a challenge for those of us who have heard over and over and over the necessity of understanding transcendence through disciplic succession and otherwise not possible. Or a little bit earlier, taking help from intelligence. Madhvacharya's commentary says this does not negate the importance of sadhu sangha. So how does somebody, we're going to be hearing somebody, not where did he receive this knowledge in disciplic succession? Because checkmate, without knowledge in disciplic succession, one cannot reach proper conclusions. One can reach some conclusions, but not the proper conclusions. And here we have Krishna telling the story of King Yadu, who's an ancestor of Krishna, having a discussion with an avadhuta where there's no apparent disciplic succession. So hang on. And I haven't gone ahead, so I don't have the immediate answer, so don't ask till we get there. But it's a unique situation and meant to illustrate at least that the process of understanding things on one's own strength can lead to the position of surrender to the personality of Godhead. Like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, "Bahunam janmanam ante gyanavan mam prapadyate Vasudev sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha." So Vasudev literally means the all-pervading supreme, or the son of Vasudev, whose name is Vasudev, Krishna. And so by the extent, commonly we understand the extent of the process of Gyan is to reach the impersonal feature, understanding the impersonal feature of the Absolute Truth. This Bhagavad Gita verse says there's another option, and that is to realize Vasudeva is the source of everything, and thus surrender to him. So it's the second of those two options that this story is narrating, an avadhuta who has come to such a conclusion. And without any indication, we'll see as the commentary goes along, did he hear anything from someone from disciplic succession or not? Let's stay tuned to hear, because I'm not aware of what it says coming up. That's the topic. And the rest of the chapter is the avadhuta describing how he has learned from different gurus of this, this features of this world. Often Prabhupada would use the same kind of logic. By studying the world, we can understand transcendence, or we can understand truths that apply in the material world, principles that we can understand in the material world, and thus principles of transcendence. Just listening this morning to, for example, male-female attraction is there. Where does it come from? So one can try to negate it, saying it's unwholesome, or one can go for it and saying yummy. But from the discerning person will consider, where does this come from? And the happiness, the tendency to want happiness, it's of the soul. So where does that tendency come from? And so forth. By seeing worldly things, one can infer and understand transcendental things. He's saying, a wealthy man, he enjoys the company of beautiful women and with facilities for enjoyment. Where does this come from? Krishna is Bhagavan. He has all opulences, and it's not the material kind of enjoyment, it's his transcendental enjoyment. So where does a living entity that have such propensities get those propensities? By inference. That's within the Supreme. So the moralists don't like that Krishna does such things, because morally you don't do such things. But Krishna is not immoral. Worldly people that do such things, they're immoral, and Krishna is in another category. And that's, for a moralist, that's hard. It's too big of a step. And so they don't like those pastimes that are, Krishna's childhood pastimes, fantastic. Innocent, transcendental, no problem. Parental affection, no problem. Friendship, no problem. But then the conjugal pastimes and taking the garments of the gopis and so forth, they have a problem with it. They have a problem with Krishna, they have a problem with people who worship Krishna. What kind of God are you worshipping? And so forth. And scholarly people, moralists. So the moralists certainly have their place in worldly society. They're, in one sense, protecting society from sinful activity by their moral tenacity. But they don't have, they're unable to gain entrance into Krishna's transcendental activities, including, you name it, speaking to Arjuna to encourage him to fight. What to speak of his pastimes in Vrindavan? There's no entrance into that, simply by morality. Okay, let's see if there's some discussion. Huh? Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. We're going to go see what slides we have here. Oh, look at that, telephone. If we are searching for the telephone number of a particular person, This was in yesterday's discussion. Sorry. If we are searching for the telephone number of a particular person, we look in the authorized telephone directory. Similarly, if we are searching for a particular product, we go to a specialized store where we're likely to find what we are looking for. So we go to authorities, depending upon the topic. And Srila Jiva Goswami points out that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not a product of the imagination, and thus we cannot whimsically imagine what the Lord might be. Therefore, to gain information about Lord Krishna, one must conduct a regulated search in the authorized Vedic scriptures. That's this direct, using the intelligence in the direct method, following the regulations of bhakti, and searching for transcendence through the Vedic scriptures. That's proper use of the inquisitive spirit and one's capacity for intelligence. Now the slide changer is not working again. There we go. One may also directly perceive the Lord through chanting and hearing His holy names and glories. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu means that one should always chant and hear of the glories of the Lord. One who perfectly hears and chants will undoubtedly see the Lord face to face. That's seeing the Lord face to face for sure. And that's the direct perception by hearing and chanting. Okay, so that's it for our morning class, presentation-wise. And let's see if there's some discussion. We have a little time.
Guru Maharaj, this topic of intelligence or trying to know about Krishna by inference, is this same as Buddhi Yoga that's referred in Bhagavad Gita chapter 2?
It's not necessarily, it can be, but not necessarily. Meaning, buddhi means intelligence, and intelligence can be used to search for Krishna. That's proper buddhi yoga. When that search becomes consummated or complete, then that's buddhi yoga in its complete form. However, it can be there can be a speculative effort, and that's not the same. At least my understanding is it's not fully buddhi yoga yet. Buddhi yoga is something that Krishna directly gives. It's not just an effort. It's something that Krishna reciprocates with one's effort and gives that understanding or buddhi or intelligence. Speculation can lead to buddhi, but it may not. Inquisitive spirit is needed. Wanting to know is needed. And one may or may not receive the intelligence to know. When one receives, that's buddhi yoga. It's not exactly, there's a bucket over here and there's a bucket over there kind of thing. It is either in this bucket or in that bucket. But Bodhi Yoga means when Krishna gives intelligence to understand Him and how to come to Him. Okay?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Maharaj, this is regarding like yesterday's presentation.
Okay.
So that we have seen the Sanatan Goswamis, in Govardhan Parikrama, the Sanatan, Krishna gave Sanatan Goswami the Govardhan Shila with the footprint.
Nice, huh?
So I was just like, at that time we were saying that like Sanatan Goswami, whatever he takes a vows, it is so he's so determined and all.
Yes.
So I was just like, it's also like something like how to question, but I was just like thinking that how are we, for suppose for me, I was just thinking sometimes the vows are like so tough to keep up with the vows, like, and it is like, is it the determination or is it the mercy we need to seek? Or I was just like thinking of like, I'm not like comparing with the exalted souls, like, but I'm just like thinking like, where is that lacking of like, when I take some determination, when I take some types of vows, it is sometimes it comes and it falls back, and it's just
Sometimes what?
it falls back, and it is very difficult to come and pick that vows back to do the spiritual vows. When we take it, it's not the same to keep going with that, like I was.
How does one strengthen vows so they stick and they're not pliable?
Yeah.
You're familiar, I'm sure, you're familiar with the 3 stages of bhakti, meaning Kanishta, Madhyama, and Uttama, or beginning, intermediate, and advanced. The characteristic of the beginning is, this is faith, is soft and pliable. One could say the ability to uphold vows is also soft and pliable. And then fixed, Madhyama, and unshakable, can't be, there has scriptural understanding and can defeat all opposing. That's the faith in the Uttama position. Now it's similar to vows. So how to move from the preliminary stage to the more advanced stage, or the intermediate stage. A principle that you can apply, we should apply, is take vows that are sustainable and based upon, so the principle is the principle of commitment. And commitment, not just to yourself, the way to go to a higher stage of commitment is to another. Because commitment to oneself, we're self-centered. Circumstance can shift, and conditioning can shift that commitment to oneself. But if you make a commitment to another, in principle, it's stronger. That's if, depending upon those who have the mode of goodness, it's stronger. Let's say, here's a little worldly example. Supposing in one pocket, you're in your back pocket, you have a wallet, or ladies in their purse, they have a wallet, and then somewhere else you're carrying some money that you're to deliver on behalf of somebody, or a valuable or something. I have experience. You're much more conscientious about the money that you're carrying on behalf of someone, or the valuable thing that you're conveying on behalf of someone. Yes. So it's natural. Let's say, this sacrificing for your family. You can undergo all kinds of, you don't even think about it, sacrifice for your family because they're dear to you. And now, you don't have to have a vow about that. It's just part of your life. And then for yourself, well, I should this is good for me. So you think about it and you decide this is good. So it's strengthened based upon the bhakti principle that you're doing for Krishna, and then so that's leveraging from vows that are not so well maintained to vows that are well maintained. It's for someone. It's my relationship with someone. This is part of, it's characteristic of my relationship with someone. I benefit by sacrificing for the benefit of someone. That will help strengthen the concept, the internal spirit or mood of being in a relationship and upholding a commitment you make in that relationship with another person. And ultimately the Supreme Person or representatives of the Supreme Person, whoever they may be. And a second principle that will help is to make vows that are doable. Recognizing one of the difficulties with doable vows is time and circumstance and the modes of nature and, something emergency and things come up but I'm, so still this is a doable one, even with all of those variables. And you just stay on that because I want to strengthen the relationship and I want to make good on the commitments I make. And so you do doable ones, and it strengthens your capacity to uphold your vows. Doable ones. And then you celebrate, and then you move on to the incremental next step. That's progress on a principle. So incremental steps and personal commitments in a relationship with others. Maybe for a housewife and mother, it might be easiest to do just in terms of your family members. For my bhakti life, I want to increase my capacity to uphold vows. So to help me, I'm going to make a little vow with my son and with my husband. Something. And I want to do that for Krishna. And you do it. You do it for some prescribed, commitment period of time. Whatever that is. Think about it, whatever it might be. For Kadasi or Janmashtami or Kartik month or something, New Year's resolution, something. Okay?
Thank you.
Question from Adbhuta Krishna Das Prabhu. Does faith automatically follow after we understand existence of God using intelligence only? That is without bhakti?
Read it again, because I did the last part threw me for a loop without bhakti.
Does faith automatically follow after we understand existence of God using intelligence? Using intelligence only, that is without bhakti.
Well, the difficulty in processing the question is faith without bhakti. So let's go back to the definition of faith from Lord Chaitanya. Faith is, by one thing I'll achieve other desirable things. It's faith. So faith without bhakti is faith in something without bhakti, whatever that something is. Faith. And it's not durable. Faith may enter. Let's say, a student has some faith that, if I'm going to take up this course of study, and from this course of study, I'll help qualify myself for such and such a career, and I just keep going without any bhakti involved in it. And there may be some spiritual dimension to it, or religious dimension to it. Something that will help me is I offer prayers to Goddess Saraswati or something like that. And that's how I live my life. There's no specific bhakti involved. It's my faith taking help from the intelligence. I see others do it, and here I go. In principle, any faith that it grows in that manner is limited and temporary. And that is to say, without supported by bhakti, it's limited and temporary. Temporary means it will come and it will go. So my inclination is to answer the question. It may appear to be substantial, but without bhakti it's not substantial.
Question from Girivaradari Das. Question related to false ego comes first and leaves last. Does this principle apply to our birth and death in the material world?
Of course. This is just one drop in the bucket of false ego comes first and leaves last.
Sometimes in bhakti, I feel the need to experience or understand reality with my senses in order to develop faith. How can I fix that attitude?
How can you fix the attitude? Read Bhagavatam. And so the attitude when reading the Bhagavatam will tell you, redirect that tendency towards something that the fulfillment will be met rather than not met.
Comment from Archana Vaidya Mataji. Krishna has given us the ways to understand his presence in Bhagavad Gita, like taste of water, ability, etc. Also in Vibhuti Yoga, he has told us how to remember him. It is a great mercy of our preceptors to give us that knowledge in a very easy and understandable way.
Yes. Those are symptoms, or lakshana, as the word was used in the commentary, characteristics that tell us something. And these are Krishna's vibhutis, or Krishna's presence, in a limited and indirect fashion.
Question from Divyambara Devidasi. This was from a few days ago. What exactly does Jiva Goswami's reference mean by perception and intelligence? Does mean spiritual intelligence?
Yes. That's it.
Maharaj, this is not related to today's subject matter.
It's okay.
But this is a question raised by somebody else.
Mask.
This was a question that was raised by somebody else when we were talking of Kshatriyas and the benefit that they get by dying on a battlefield. They go to heavenly planets and things like that, right? So the question was, okay, if they are fighting for dharma, they get to the heavenly planets. But if they are Kshatriyas who are aggressors and they get killed on the battlefield, do they still get that kind of a benefit?
No.
And how does it apply? Do the same things apply to the modern day soldiers?
Oh, yes.
They get the benefit of going to the heavenly planets.
Well, where's the dharma in modern warfare? So the answer is no.
Okay.
It doesn't apply to modern. It applies to dharmic warfare, not modern warfare.
Right. Yeah, thank you. I wanted to confirm that.
Guru Maharaj, this is the question from the verses we are reading from the 10th canto a few days ago in the evening.
Okay.
Not so clear on the question, but just trying to understand the affection that we were talking about of the Vrajbasis feel towards Krishna. Like we in the modern world around us, we also see mother having affection for a child in a
Yes.
like what makes the affection of the Vrajbasis so superlative? Is it the intensity of the affection that they have more, or is it the fact that it is Krishna?
It's both. That Krishna is that mothers have affection is natural, and there are such relationships in Vaikuntha. There's such relationships in Ayodhya. There's such relationships in Dwarka, in Mathura, and it's transcendental because the Lord is at the center of those relationships. And the intensity of that love in Vrindavan is unequaled. So much so that they cannot see his divinity. And Krishna reciprocates with that intensity by covering the perception of him as the supreme. Even he shows himself, they can't see it because their intensity of affection is so superlative. So it's both. The same as that phrase that we discussed yesterday evening, perfect, more perfect, most perfect. Purnatama, most perfect. For both of those reasons, most perfect. Prabhupada ki.